Time magazine has asked the question, do we need to start looking at superheroes? We're looking at the police, we're looking at injustice, we're looking at rethinking how we have security. It's time to start looking at superheroes. The only problem is superheroes aren't real, not the ones they're talking about. There's Spider-Man doesn't exist. So no, no, we don't. But let's talk about it anyway. Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a Time magazine article out there that you could take a generous view or a cynical view. I'm going to try and take both here. That basically asks the question, do we need to start, it's time for us to start re-looking at superheroes. And the idea is kind of that superheroes are designed to be an authority figure. They work outside the law. In many cases, they have good intentions, but it's their own personal judgments, and that it sets a bad example that basically people can put on a costume and fight crime, and they're not accountable to anyone, and racial injustice, social injustice can occur when you have that going on. Now you might ask yourself, wait a minute, haven't comic books actually addressed that? And the answer is yes. Yes, actually every major company has addressed it. It was somewhat the plot of Civil War. It was definitely featured in Wildstorm's The Authority. I mean, that was what that entire comic was about. It's been touched on in Batman and in Superman, and it's a common theme of who watches the Watchmen. Oh, right, the Watchmen is another one that exists. So this isn't a new thing. So when we're talking about it's time to start looking at these things, what do you mean? Because comics have been looking at these things pretty consistently for at least 3 decades, maybe more. But when you read the article, you really come to understand they're talking about the movies. And this is where the cynical thing comes in. My belief in this article is simply that you've got somebody, staff writer, trying to generate clicks. It's like, what are two topics that are on people's minds right now? Well, one, we have the protests, and we have the general kind of the BLM and the various rallies and protests and etc. around this topic. That's number one, good for SEO. And number two, we've got superhero movies that make billions of dollars, and people are always interested in reading about that. I mean, this late night talk show Jackass says that Stan Lee is who cares about him and superheroes, and it gets tons and tons of hits. I mean, the clickbait articles on what a movie director said that he doesn't really like superhero movies, and he thinks they're amusement park rides, and it generates clicks and money for days. So put these two together, it's gold, right? Well, right. That's exactly what was done here. It's very hard to read this article and believe that the person writing it, either researched or believed in anything they were saying. That's the cynical part. I don't buy that anyone actually thinks seriously about this topic. I think it's purely a way to drive revenue. And so if that's true, then it helps in how we address this and how we talk about this whole thing. Because somebody who's looking for attention and looking to drive cash, it changes how we're going to talk with them. We don't have to talk to them as seriously because they're not being serious. This isn't a serious conversation. This is a money conversation. But for the moment, let's indulge it and just kind of go into it. I mean, problem number one is in a world where you've got superheroes who can fly into the sun, and you've got villains, and you've got fantasy stories, and you've got the Lord of the Rings, and you've got every, Star Wars, any possible thing from sci-fi to fantasy to even drama. As it turns out, those romantic comedies that people are into, it turns out romance doesn't actually work like that. You walk into a coffee shop and you accidentally spill something on a super beautiful woman, and at first she's angry with you, but eventually she comes around, and through twists of fate and random encounters, you fall deeply in love, and you share pets together in your little lower Manhattan apartment. Those movies? Those movies are popular with people. Those movies are not real. That's not how it works. If you go into Starbucks and spill coffee on somebody, they're probably just going to be pissed. And it's not going to be somebody you're going to be banging 3 months later. That's just not how it's going to work. No, movies are fantasy. They're fictional. Even a lot of the nonfiction is fiction, meaning people give accounts. A lot of the war movies and the the historical representations of different things. They're not. They're dramatized. They're invented for Hollywood. They're invented for entertainment. Real accounts of somebody's day or a specific event are usually pretty damn boring. I read a book once on Pearl Harbor that was the completely unvarnished, no frills account of Pearl Harbor. It was super boring because a lot of it's like, well, we're going to make this bombing plan, and that sounds pretty horrific, and then we're going to sit in a plane for a long time, and we're going to fly out over there, and then we're going to bomb them. We're not, and it's like it. You take all the drama out of it. It's a pretty dry read. You have to really want to learn about what was going on. And that's true of a lot of history. So people dramatize stuff. So I say all this because the idea of we need to change how superhero movies work because they may be setting a bad example. It's like, I mean, yeah, but we're not going to be able to stop there. We're going to have to go to everything. All entertainment sets a bad example to someone. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try and do better. You absolutely try. You should try and give as honest account as you can. You should try and respect the characters, the audience. You should not blast falsehoods out there out of nowhere. Absolutely, all that is true. Without going into the entire kind of background of movies like Song of the South, which people have criticized for, treating slavery like it was a happy-go-lucky, fun time for all. There's a point there. Now, granted, it also had cartoon animals and singing and other things, so it's like it's not, you can't look at that and say, well, this is a really well, I mean, you could. I guess you could say it's a really sinister piece of cinema that was designed to mislead people into thinking that there were, happy times everywhere. I don't think that many people think slavery was happy times. I mean, maybe I may be wildly misguided on this, but I live in my privileged, left coast kind of environment where, I mean, I got the lesson slavery was bad a long time ago, and have kind of continued to work with that approach. But anyway, I think that it's a tough topic. I think that the idea that superhero movies need to be banned or need to be really addressed because they're misleading people into thinking that vigilante justice is okay is a crazy one. I don't think anybody in their right mind believes that is true. But again, maybe I'm wrong. If you want to address this, I think, and this is the key, we need to stop looking for easy solutions with movies and with cinema and with just, we need to stop looking at those solutions. We need to look at ourselves. We are the ones who write these movies, these things. We are the ones who participate in this entertainment. It's up to us to do a good job. If we fail in that, it's us to blame. It requires the hard work of us, contributing something. If we constantly look to blame other things, to blame other people, then I think that we're basically kind of lazily kind of deferring our own responsibility. And that's what this often feels like. It feels like we're basically saying it's too hard for us to figure out. So, let's blame the superheroes. If we could just ban them, then we won't have to address or talk through the really hard moral problems. We won't have to kind of solve our own issues. We could just say, let's not be like Spider-Man and, problem solved. And that's really all we need to do. And that seems like a cop-out to me, but maybe I'm crazy. Anyway, what do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe. I think this is just an absurd article with an absurd premise, and I think I always read these things and I think here's somebody shirking their own responsibility. Not the way to go. For me, anyway. Anyway, let me know your comments below. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch. Most importantly, thanks for listening.